Well, I guess that means it's time for the show. Thank you all for being here today. And can you hear this? Is that coming through okay? This is marvel of modern technology. We're going to try that. Hey, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the tech team and all the technology that we use here. Eric, Jacob, and all the other folks, and there's more things coming in the future, so stay tuned. So today, for all of you who are here, thank you for being here. For all of you who will watch this on our YouTube channel in the future, welcome, and I hope this gets you to think and leaves you with some information that can be useful. And I'm going to try my best to remotely run this from the front, so we're trying to use technology as we go. Now, many of you know me, and you know that I'm not a minister. This is my first sermon ever, and so I can't do justice to teach you so much about spirituality other than what I feel and what I believe and what I know. But I do know something about technology, and I thought that would be a fun talk to give today. So for those of you who know something about and play with on a regular basis now technology, this should be a refreshing twist of what you get at a church or at a center for spiritual living. So let's start with, in the beginning, it's a good place to start. It said that God created the heaven and the earth. And he did that in a week, so that must have been a really busy week. And then he also created men and women. And it said that he did that because he wanted to have some companionship and wanted to communicate and wanted to collaborate and co-create. And I think we all share that sense of aloneness versus being connected with others, and it's better to be connected somehow with others. But through the years, this is an age-old question that's been around for thousands of years. What is the connection between our physical selves and the universe and the heavens and gods or God or all of those iterations over time? So there were lots of different people who have appeared and tried to help us understand, and you can kind of watch the visual chronology on the screen behind me. From virtually every culture and every country, people have said, we'd like to know what's going on, but it's tough to know ourselves. Maybe we could have some people that are specialists in these areas. And you know from some of these images, this is literally a phenomenon around the world. This search for a connection with our source. Some are a little on the crazy side, and some are a little more serious, but they're all fundamentally trying to do the same thing. There's some structure, there's some language, there's some attempt to help us to understand what's going on. And part of who we are and what we practice, and as more people are finding, is they just like it to be simple, and they'd like it to be heartfelt and in a way that can make sense without a lot of rigor and confusion. So you hear about a lot of the spirituality pieces, so let's focus on the technology. So we'll start with, what is technology? So here's a definition for you. Technology is the invention, the making of, the use of tools and machines or systems with a specific function, a particular purpose. They can solve problems, they can help make improvements in what we're trying to do in everyday life and our frustrations, and they can add or expand on our human capabilities. Add or expand on our human capabilities. And so tools can be all kinds of things, and again, you can see the chronology from the past. Literally, the earliest days of humans have been a chronicle of the kinds of tools that have been created that made an impact, so that people could eat better, so that they could record what was going on, so that they could communicate with others in different ways, and language and numbers to account for what we're doing. But also to be able to do what we know as the more common elements here, and those last two things in particular with transistors and technology and computers and now smartphones, it makes an incredible difference. And so in particular, I'll focus on those last two items, which I'll call the digital tools that most people are familiar with. We basically have the wheel down and how that's used. And everyone uses it, and you don't even think about that anymore. And so that's just a progression of where we're at now with digital tools. Well, the primary premise that I'm talking about today is this, based on that definition of technology. The technology provides the tools that we can use to solve and expand on our human capabilities, but to practice spiritual principles and to deepen our understanding and our connection with our source. So I'd like you to just hold that as a way, a perspective to understand what technology is about. Technology can be confusing, technology can be scary. People can say, I don't like that, I don't want anything to do with that, and it's part of who we are these days, so it's hard to avoid. Now, many of you know master teachers from thousands of years ago. I'll highlight Jesus and some of what he was doing when he became very clear. He was perfectly connected with his source. And as he started to see what he could do with that deep understanding, and the miracles, if you go and see the chronicles of that, where he would heal the sick, where he would make the lame walk and the blind to see, that was incredible back then. But since his time till now, that's about 2,000 years, there aren't many other people who have made that kind of a leap. Now, we can all work on that, but it's taken a while, and notice there aren't any other people yet. What I want to suggest to you is that technology basically is kind of shattering this model, because, if I can get my technology to work, healing the sick and helping the lame to walk and the blind to see is done every day now, everywhere around the world. I'm not trying to make fun of spirituality. I'm trying to suggest to you that technology enables us to do things that have us be able to be more closely connected with our spiritual selves and with our source. And this is now commonplace. And in particular, notice the quote on the top, which I borrowed from John 14:12. When Jesus did these things and these miracles, he said, hey, I know this is great, but this isn't about me. This is about what I realize I can do now because I'm connected with my source, and greater things than these will you be able to do as you realize your connection with source. So I'd like to invite you to view technology as one of those ways to help you to make a connection with source. So it doesn't have to be an either or. Are you perfectly connected with the divine? There's part of us that can believe that every day. But the use of technologies help us to get closer and to do more things that historically would have been viewed as miraculous. We now do that on a regular basis. But at the same time, and with a quote from Ernest Holmes, and I checked with the technological Akashic records, which are basically known as the cloud, and I did find something from Ernest. It's amazing. And so on July 4th, 1937, he was giving a talk somewhere, and he was talking about technology. He was lamenting the difficulty of having to travel all around the country. And how could you be in so many places? I can't move fast enough. There's so much to do before you run out of time in this life. And he said in particular, he said, technology can and should be used to overcome our limitations. This is a quote from Ernest Holmes. It's a little-known quote from Ernest Holmes. He was talking about, in particular, planes and cars and his dilemma of being able to move around. But he realized if there are tools that can help us to do and to express what we're all about, we should absolutely embrace those and use those because they help us to recognize our source and to share that with others. And it's about embracing technology. Well, there's some challenges with technology, including with remote controls. So if you saw in news media, hey, there's some children that were praying in a far-off place, isn't that really something? Now, can you imagine you would see that on the news? Well, probably not. You'll probably see something like this. Oh, there's a tragedy and a fire and some terrorism somewhere in a far-off place. And just notice what comes across news media. And you might ask, well, why do they do that? And if you ask them, their response might be, and these arguments go on, well, that's what people want. Technology can be used for good and technology can be used for not good. But relative to the media, there's a challenge in recognizing what's coming through and seeing if that's consistent with who you are and what you'd like to be in your mind and in your life. So I'll play that question back to you as the final talk in this month is, what's important? What's important to you? What's the intention that you have in this life? Because that may also shape what you watch and what is portrayed across the media. To me, it's a question of intention. What are we really all about? Again, oh, technology is so wonderful. Another word of warning I found, and there's lots of people as they start to wrestle with technology and ask, what's the connection with spirituality? This is from a book by Sherry Turkle. The book is titled Alone Together. And she says, the ties we form through the internet are not, in the end, the ties that bind, but they are the ties that preoccupy. And so people have struggled for a while now with understanding what's the benefit of the internet and what's the challenge of the internet and technology. And there seem to be some words of warning. But at the same time, we know that there have been dramatic changes that have been taking place to some of the social institutions that we have. So with things like Facebook, how many people have a Facebook page or use Facebook? Oh my gosh, almost everyone. How many people do email and text messaging, and it's pervasive now. And why do people do this stuff? Because it adds value. It helps you be connected with others. But what is that difference? And if you ask the question, what's the difference between interacting with someone personally versus interacting with someone through technology? Whether that's video conference or FaceTime or email or text messaging or fill in the blank. It's hard to keep up with this stuff anymore. Some people have wrestled with this, and one of the answers was the prana is missing. And this was from a researcher out of the Xerox Park Center, Ranjit Makuni. And he said it's something to do with this sense of life force, the breath, the energy of others that's missing. And so some people get to this point and they can say, yes, that's right. See, it's better to interact with people in a human way. And that technology thing, that's not quite as good because it's missing some human elements. But I have to tell you, these boundaries are being pushed. And so I'd like you to consider to revisit that question if that's where you've left your answer. Because anymore, I don't think that's the case. And it may even end up being just the opposite. Here's an application you may not be familiar with. It's called iBeer. And so, like any good tool, I like to say tools, when they first become available, there's this honeymoon period, and people are like, oh my gosh, how cool is this? And it also, I think, draws on base human weaknesses until we figure out, okay, how do you really use this in a responsible way? That can happen. And so relative to technology, maybe you're not a drinker, no problem, you can have a virtual drink at any age. But at the same time, there's other technology that's out, and now there's an app where you can connect into your phone and blow in it, and it will actually give you a direct reading on your blood alcohol level. The point I want to make is technology can enable us to stay in touch with what's a good thing to do, what's a smart thing to do, and let's strike a balance. So it's not all wild and crazy. There's actually something you can do that can be beneficial and healthy, and it allows us to strike the balance using that tool so it's not out of control, but rather it's in balance and in control. Some of you may not know the French band Daft Punk. But they just released their new album earlier this week. It's called Random Access Memories. And this already is becoming the best-selling CD in 55 countries around the world. That's never been done before by the Beatles or Michael Jackson or Madonna. This is what's now capable for people to connect through technology. And whether you like them or not, you obviously know how much music is intertwined with technology and everybody wearing their earphones. So I wouldn't avoid the fact of what's out there and what's able to be used. And it's not just young people, it's all kinds of people. There's music therapy that I remember we used to be engaged with that can be a constructive thing to do. So I thought that would be fun for you to just see. And those helmets, by the way, are now the hot item when you're out there on Amazon. You can check. They're now going for several $1,000s. So there's something you can put on your wish list. Well, let me just chronicle some of the big social paradigms that have been falling out of the way because of technology, and I'll end with religion. So the first has to do with the law. Well, the law is the law, and that's kind of the way it is, and there are lawyers, and there are the experts on this stuff. And with technology, slowly what we found is, you know what, I can kind of figure that stuff out on my own, and if I get into an accident with an 18-wheeler, there's an app for that, and I can actually figure out how I should handle that situation. I may need a lawyer, and maybe I don't. In medicine, well, that's a really tricky area. It goes back thousands of years, and there are experts in this stuff, and doctors are there, and doctors are taught in medical school to give orders, including to you as the patients. But people are saying, well, okay, but you know, there are apps for this now. I can kind of learn this on my own and kind of make my own decisions and be responsible for what's going on. In banking, you know, it used to be go and turn in your money and then they'll give you some, but only during certain hours in the day, and don't try to go there on a Sunday. And now that's been completely turned upside down. You can do it anytime, anywhere, on your own. And if you haven't caught this wave that's unfolding right now, big media outlets are losing millions of customers, including from like cable and so forth, because they're saying, you know, I don't really like this model, what I call the couch model. You sit on the couch and this box will flow stuff at you and shape how you view life and what's funny and what clothes you should wear and what kind of food you should eat. That's the model that's been in place for a long time. I suggest you watch commercials for these images because they're there. You don't even recognize them anymore. But what people are now doing is saying, you know what, I think I can kind of do this on my own, and I'll pick and choose what I want to watch and when I want to watch. And a matter of fact, rather than just being on the receiving end, I'd like to interact with what's out there. I may see something that's really incredible. I may witness the news. I may be part of the news. And now I can become the broadcaster. And I can not just tell my friends, I can let anyone in the world know what's going on. And this is turning those models upside down. So I hope you get it. Technology is an enabler for these kinds of incredible changes. Well, we have to tiptoe into the water now with religion and spirituality and technology. That's one of those last steps that have gone down. So in 2010, there was an app that was created while Steve Jobs was still there at Apple. This was called Me So Holy. There's probably a twist there somewhere, right? And so they said, okay. So this was kind of a cool app, and it'll make sense to you. It's like, well, you can have a picture of like a saint or a priest or something like that, and you can put your picture on it. Wouldn't that be cool? You could be just like a priest. You could be just like a holy person. Wouldn't that be cool? Well, when they launched this app, they unleashed fire and brimstone in a way that Apple had never seen. From every corner of the planet, they got so much negativity that they quickly said in about a day, okay, we're not running that app anymore, and they pulled it. And so they kind of concluded, maybe humanity isn't ready for technology and spirituality or religion to be there. So they sort of backed up a little bit, and they said, well, maybe we can do something that's a little safer. And so if we look at some of the books that have already been written, and you can buy them, and you can touch them, and own them, and read them. Maybe we could just kind of make them electronic versions, not too big of a stretch. And so now that's all out there, no problem. And you too can go do that, right? Even Maura showed me that at this year's annual meeting, there's a new app that's coming out from the Mother Church, Centers for Spiritual Living. And they'll be showing, here's what we're doing. See, we're in the modern age too. So I looked yesterday, and guess what? There's already 4 other apps out there that can show you wherever you are in the country, where's the nearest Center for Spiritual Living. And maybe I can interact with a practitioner. Maybe I could take a class. Maybe I could see some sermon that was given. Maybe I can watch a sermon live on my phone. Yes, you can do all that right now. The Center's application isn't even launched yet. If you went and look for that, it's not even out there because they're working on it, and there's already other stuff that's accelerating at a very fast speed. But they're trying to embrace technology, and so I would certainly give them great credit for that. Well, so last year, most of you have seen, partly because they have a huge marketing and advertising budget, ChristianMingle.com. Great site, a lot of people use it. I think last year they said they had 100,000 marriages that occurred there. Wonderful. Now, when I saw this come out, I thought, uh-oh, here we go again. But luckily, they played the right angle. They said, it's not about religion. This is about relationships, and so that's okay. Don't mind the Christian piece. It's about relationships. Well, that's great. Well, you may not have caught the news over the last couple weeks. The first serial predator has been arrested. He wasn't quite as Christian as everyone thought. And it's now unfolding, and more people are coming out of the woodwork saying, oh my gosh, I interacted with that person too. And so you'll see this unfold over the upcoming weeks as that case starts to get built. So again, it's a word of warning to us. Just because it says it on the internet and technology, it doesn't mean that that's right or that's true. You do have to stay in touch with that. But let's just zip through the cycle of life and try to summarize this with what technology can do. So you meet someone on this side or some other side, and you say, well, I don't know, I just don't feel good after that first encounter. I think I'll call it a day. But you don't even want to talk to him anymore. Don't worry, there's an app for that. Because you could use cute breakups. Okay, now you're happy again. See, technology, isn't that cool? Or maybe you say, you know what, I really like that person, but I'm just really shy, and I don't think I can ask him to marry me. Don't worry, there's an app for that. You could use Will You Marry Me? And then that will say, hey, okay, there you go. And so maybe you decide, yeah, let's go ahead and get married. And there are hundreds of apps for that. I said I'm not going to look at that. But let's say you get married, and then you decide, well, let's not have kids right now. There's an app for that. And then you say, well, let's now have kids. There's an app for that. And then you say, well, let's watch my belly protrude out and make a sequential video. There's an app for that. Not to be confused with the obesity app for males that can do the same thing. I'm not making this up. Maybe you're ready to deliver. It's the contraction app, and you can see when you're ready. And then you have a birth, and it's the potty tracker. Is it number 1 or number 2? And oh my gosh, my favorite is you're having dinner with friends. Why should you just constantly be interrupting them? Just wait for your smartphone to tell you, oh, you need to go change the diaper. Can you imagine people used to not know and go back and forth? If this is driving you nuts, you can get a divorce. There's an app for that. And if you say, okay, I can't make any sense out of this, I don't know what's real anymore, there's an app for helping you raise a happy teenager. And the cycle repeats. And so this isn't going away. People are embracing this at a rate that is incomprehensible. So let me try to summarize then. Where are we at? First of all, technology is evolving faster than you can keep up with it, faster than you can comprehend. If you wanted to look on the App Store, how many apps are there now? Over 1 million. How many new apps appear every day? Over 1,000. You can't keep up with it. You have 24 hours in a day. How many hours of YouTube video are posted every day? 103,000. You can't possibly keep up with this. So, don't hide in a cave and say, I give. But just recognize and digest as much as you can tolerate and you can make sense of and process in a value-adding way. Don't get buried by it. Too much isn't healthy, and so learn about filtering. And so email was one of those first, and how do you filter out the spam? And I can't even delete my email fast enough to keep up with it. And so there are other ways to do that. But you all passed lots of blue cars on the way here today. You saw them perfectly, but you don't remember them. Your brain naturally does this. You filter things out because it doesn't help you in what you're all about. Learn how to filter with technology. The cloud can hold a lot of abundance, but whether you know it or not, it does until it doesn't. The cloud can disappear in a flash. And literally, if you talk with our president of the Core Council, Art Morales, he'll tell you about the way the fire department practices for a possible terrorist attack in the future that has an EMP pulse that knocks out all technology. This is a reality of technology. So it's not about the technology. And if you have all of your records and banking statements and photos in the cloud somewhere, they could disappear instantly. So just appreciate that. It's not about the technology. It's what the technology enables us to do, because technology also has a risk. Turn off, and then you can turn on later, your technology. Please don't get absorbed by this. It can be consuming. It can draw your attention. It can be addictive. There are 12-step programs now to help people get off of technology because it consumes more and more time in your day. So learn where the off switch is and turn it off or mute it. Learn how to do that and be good at it. You can turn it back on. And the last two, question the source. Technology can be misleading and you don't know what's behind that. Even when you're live with other people, you never can really know exactly where they're at. If they're wearing a police uniform or a judge's robe or a doctor's coat, you never really know where they're coming from. Technology is even a step removed from that. So you do need to work at this. And the final thing, and this really is the close of this month's talk, about intention, and that is technology is a tool. Please use it in a way that can help you to recognize our source and what we're all about. Because it's all out there and it's all available for us, and that's the way I like to go through life, just knowing that when I need to know something, I can draw from source. Whether it's technology helping me to do that, or whether it's directly. It's staying connected with Source and letting that clarify our intention. And technically we would say, and so it is. So let's have a prayer.